Waldenström's macroglobulinemia is treated in Canada like many other indolent non-Hodgkin's lymphomas. The standard of care remains Rituximab in combination with chemotherapy. In general, our preferred partner for chemotherapy, like in other indolent lymphomas, is bendamustine. For a lot of patients, that ends up being a great choice. Bendamustine is quite well tolerated. The combination is very effective, and generally patients may achieve great remission. Following that, typically rituximab maintenance is given for 2 years, and that's generally how primary therapy is managed. Things get a little more challenging in the relapse setting as well. We do have some access to Ibrutinib as a single agent, the potential to retreat people with combination chemotherapy, including rituximab, or even using rituximab monotherapy, which is used but rarely so because generally the combinations with chemotherapy are a little more effective. I'd say the practice that we have at Princess Margaret or in my own practice is quite similar to what happens in the rest of Canada. Again, the lessons are largely learned from larger data sets in other types of indolent lymphoma, and we know certainly in terms of safety, tolerability, toxicity is well generalizable, and typically the combinations of giving chemotherapy with rituximab, you get more bang for your buck, higher response rates, better progression-free survival. The INNOVATE study is an interesting randomized controlled trial that included largely 2 populations of patients with Waldenström's, a treatment-naive cohort as well as a treatment-exposed group of patients. The control arm was rituximab monotherapy, which again is an option that we use in Canada but is perhaps a little less typically used. The experimental arm, again, Ibrutinib in combination with rituximab, comes from the concept that we know the single agent data with Ibrutinib looks great. It's in part because of the drive with NF-kappa B and the presence of mutations such as MYD88 that lead to the likelihood of Ibrutinib being effective in this disease. So, not surprisingly, the randomized trial was strongly positive, favoring Ibrutinib plus rituximab, both for response rate as well as progression-free survival, a more important endpoint for this disease. Also true in the primary setting as well as in the relapse setting. And the magnitude of clinical benefit looks like it's certainly a very important one. In terms of the toxicity, nothing really new identified there. The safety signals that we knew from large data sets with long follow-up in CLL or mantle cell lymphoma largely replicated here. So in summary, we have a positive phase 3 trial, improves progression-free survival as well as response rates with a favorable toxicity profile. Well, again, the control therapy is, again, a very standard one, rituximab, which generally has quite a favorable toxicity profile. So these types of events do happen in these types of studies. I think we might have been more concerned if we'd seen them in the experimental arm, where the question might be, could they have been some of the infectious toxicities or bleeding risk that we might see or cardiac events that we might see with Ibrutinib. But this may also lead to a bit of speculation about the patient population, in that, as I said, in Canada we tend to prefer giving chemo-rituximab combinations. You might imagine a frailer population might have been eligible and considered for a rituximab monotherapy study as the control arm, and that might have influenced some of these data. It's nice to see randomized trials confirm results from good phase 2 work, and having randomized studies in general is how we're more likely to get drugs approved and available for clinicians in Canada. It's a very important result. We know Ibrutinib is a well-tolerated therapy and very active in Waldenström, so nice to see. So hopefully this will make it easier for us to access reimbursed Ibrutinib moving forward. So in Waldenström's, again, it's a less common type of lymphoma. It's been great to see the capacity to do randomized studies with these sorts of exciting targeted compounds. Again, hopefully combination strategies, potentially looking at higher risk patients in the frontline setting or higher risk patients in the relapse setting, with strategies that look at targeted combinations perhaps, or trials that may eventually discontinue people in remission. Those are the sorts of things we'd like to see.